Hi everyone, I'm Wendy, and today I'm showing you how to make two creamy Instant Pot soups. And don't worry if you don't have an Instant Pot, you can also make both of these on the stovetop with a few minor adjustments. But the Instant Pot makes these dump and go soups really easy to make. I have a broccoli potato soup and a black bean soup. And of course, they're both made with whole food plant-based ingredients. The written recipes will be in the details below the video, and now let's get into it. I'm starting with the broccoli potato soup. In my 6-quart Instant Pot, I'm adding 1½ cups of dried yellow split peas that I've rinsed. You could also use green split peas if that's all you can find, but I like the lighter color that the yellow split peas give this soup. Next, I have the veggies that I've roughly chopped. Since we'll be blending this soup, you don't need to be too particular about how you chop this, so you can save yourself some time. But I do like to chop a little bit to make sure everything cooks evenly. I have 1 large onion. Any variety of onion is fine. In general, I like to use red onions, but for this recipe, I like white or yellow, again to keep the color of the final dish a little lighter. Next, I have about 4 cups of roughly chopped potatoes. Today I'm using russet potatoes that I've peeled. Peeling the potatoes will also result in a better color and texture. If you use Yukon Gold potatoes, you could probably leave the skin on. Then I have a cup of cauliflower and 1 large carrot, and the broccoli. You can use fresh, but I'm just using 2 10-ounce bags of frozen broccoli, which is about 5 to 6 cups. After that, I'm adding the spices. Just a note about my recipes, the exact amounts can be adjusted to your own tastes, and you can eyeball the measurements. But whenever I do measure, I usually use heaping spoonfuls. So this is about 1 tablespoon of granulated garlic, 2 teaspoons of smoked paprika, a teaspoon of dry mustard, about 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, and a pinch of cayenne pepper. Then I'll also be adding 2 teaspoons of a salt substitute. My favorite right now is Salacious from Local Spicery. But as I say with all of my recipes, season it the way you like. I don't add salt to my cooking, so I usually use spice blends and substitutes. But feel free to add salt or other salty seasonings like soy sauce or miso paste as you prefer. I'm also going to be adding a bay leaf, but in order to make it easier to find later, I'm going to wait and add it right on top. Next is a 1/4 cup of nutritional yeast. This ingredient is always optional, but it does add a nice cheesy or umami flavor. And then I've got 6 cups of water, or you could use vegetable broth. And this is the minimum amount of liquid you would need to make this soup work, and it'll be very thick and creamy. If you like a thinner soup, feel free to add more liquid. I'll mix that all up just a little bit to make sure the split peas don't get stuck on the bottom of the pot. Last but not least, I'm also adding 1 cup of an unsweetened plant-based milk. And then I'll lay the bay leaf right on top so we can find it easier. Secure the lid and then set this to cook for 18 minutes at high pressure. If you're making this on the stovetop, you can simply dump all the ingredients in a large pot, bring it to a boil, and then lower the heat to simmer long enough to make sure the split peas are very well done. How long this takes will depend on how old the split peas are and various other factors, but it'll probably take at least 45 minutes, and you'll want to stir it periodically. You may need to add more liquid for the stovetop version. Once the Instant Pot is done cooking, you can do a quick release or a natural release, and then I'll use an immersion blender to blend it smooth. If you'd like to leave some of it unblended, feel free to do so for a little extra texture, but we like it nice and smooth. We usually serve this soup with a side salad and my mom's whole wheat bread or some kind of whole grain. It goes great with rice or other grains. And now let me show you the black bean soup. It has a very similar structure, just with a few different ingredients and spices to make a completely different soup. This one starts with 1½ cups of dry black beans. You can soak the beans overnight for better digestibility, but today I've just rinsed the beans, but I didn't soak them. And once again, we'll be blending this soup, so I've roughly chopped the veggies. As with the other soup, any kind of onion will work, but I'm using my favorite for this one, 1 large red onion. Then I have about 4 to 6 potatoes. This time I'm using Yukon Gold, but again, russet potatoes would be great too. And for this soup, I'm not peeling the yellow potatoes because their skin is a little thinner. Plus, since this is a black bean soup, the color won't matter so much. Next, I have about a cup of chopped bell pepper. I prefer red, but orange was all I could get at the store this week. Any colored bell pepper will work. Then about 3 ribs of celery and 1 large carrot. Here I have an entire bulb of garlic. Yes, you heard me right. Not a clove, but an entire bulb. We like a lot of garlic, but adjust the amount as you like. Then I have all my spices. Again, I'm using a salt-free seasoning, but feel free to use salt if you like. And I also have a teaspoon of cumin, a teaspoon of oregano, and 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of chili powder. You could choose a spicy or mild chili powder and adjust the amount depending on how much heat you want. I also add a bay leaf to this one, but like with the other soup, I'll wait to add it on top. This soup also calls for about 6 cups of water or vegetable broth, and as before, if you'd like a thinner soup, you can add more liquid. Both of these soups do thicken up on the second day, so you may like the texture the first day, but then need to add a little extra liquid when you reheat the leftovers. Otherwise, it can almost be like mashed potatoes. So I'll stir that around, and then last but not least, I'm adding a can of no salt added tomatoes. I always add the tomatoes on top because in some cases, tomato can trigger a burn warning in the Instant Pot. I'll throw the bay leaf on top, cover it, and set it to cook for 25 minutes at high pressure. To cook this one on the stovetop, I would recommend using pre-cooked black beans, so you can either cook them from dried yourself or use about 3 cans of black beans instead. But then, once your beans are cooked, you can simply throw everything into a pot or Dutch oven, cover, and simmer for about 30 minutes to make sure all the veggies are fully cooked and the flavors have a chance to mingle. Once the Instant Pot is done, like with the last soup, you can do a quick or a natural release. Remove the bay leaf and then blend with an immersion blender. I don't have any on hand today, but this soup is great garnished with cilantro and a little bit of lime. And we usually serve this one with a side salad and my cornbread recipe. But you could also serve it alongside rice or another whole grain. Both of these soups freeze really well, so we like to eat one meal and freeze the rest for another meal. As I mentioned earlier, you may have to add a little liquid when you reheat the leftovers because it does thicken up over time. There are still a few more weeks of winter to enjoy some cozy soups, but my family loves eating soup all year long. Let me know in the comments if you also love soup any time of year and which of these soups you might like to try first. My favorite of the two is the black bean. And if you want more soup ideas, you might like my mom's California blend recipe or these 3 easy plant-based soup ideas. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.